All right, very good. So welcome to the Rowlett Creek Watershed Characterization Project, the second stakeholder meeting. This one is a little bit delayed. We had the first kickoff meeting back in May last year, and I was hoping to get one in person after that, and then it just didn't happen. So, and of course, when we did the second meeting, we're in the peak of COVID cases. Let's hope that stakeholder meeting number 3 will be able to be in person, because we'll have much better interactions, and I promise to bring drinks, coffee at least, for everyone. Right now, you guys hopefully have a coffee in front of you and are able to focus and concentrate on the presentation. So this project has been going on since 2019. It is a project, it's the first part of a watershed protection plan development. It's the watershed characterization of Rowlett Creek, which is the main stream that goes in Collin County, a little bit in Dallas County Laker, mostly through the city of Plano. This is a 319 grant that we have received from AgriLife Extension and SMU, with Wenji as the co-PI, one who was talking before, from TCEQ and EPA. The city of Plano and the North Texas Municipal Water District were active collaborators on the project. They didn't receive funds from it, but they are helping us in many ways, and we're very thankful for this. So this is the agenda of today's meeting. We're going to do very fast welcomes, the introductions for the attendees in general. Just please put, as I mentioned, put your name and your role in the chat. I'll introduce a few people on here, and then give them a chance if they, though unfortunately I don't have the capacity to make them presenters, so hopefully no one has a presentation, but you can unmute your microphone and maybe give a little bit of a update or your connection to the project. So let me just mention we have Dr. Wenji-san, who was the co-PI on the project that worked with us in the beginning. He was at SMU, and he has a co-PI on the grant. We have Keith White from the city of Plano. We have Dave Cohen from the North Texas Municipal Water District, and we have Heather Fern from the Trinity River Authority, and formerly with the city of Plano. I'll maybe, Wenji, do you have anything to just share with the stakeholders?
No, I think everybody take their time to participate in our the stakeholder meeting, and thanks so much for their support during the last few, especially during the COVID pandemic. From TCEQ, EPA, and from the city planning, got lots of support. This really busy time. We really appreciate the support, and also I think Heather is really leading a lot of the work, field work. And congratulations for Heather getting her master and now working on the TRA. So I think we had a wonderful team, and it's a pleasure to work with everybody involved in this project.
Very good.
Thank you.
Absolutely. And I didn't mention that we also have a representative from TCEQ, Kristen DeBon. But I'm going to give Keith a chance to introduce himself, and if you have any update on the city of Plano stormwater work, and we'd be happy to hear it, Keith. Keith, I think you can share now. I made you a presenter.
All right, let's.
Very good.
Looks good.
Yes, let me just switch display screens. I apologize, it did the flip on me. There we go. Okay. So just a quick overview of the City of Plano's water quality oriented programs or programs that have something to do with water quality. So we have quite a few things that we do as a team on the environmental quality division side that pertain to helping protect our water quality here in Plano. So I'm just going to briefly run through them real quick just to review for everyone. So one of them is our illicit discharge detection and elimination program, or dry weather screening, if you will. We inspect all of the city's storm drain outfalls that lead to a water body at some point in Plano, and we inspect all of them within a 5-year permit term. That is for our multi-sector municipal separate storm sewer system permit. If we observe a discharge that is or seems to be a problem, we will investigate and then find out how to stop it and prevent the pollution from entering our creeks or waterways, or prevent it from further harming our waterways. We also inspect auto-related businesses within Plano. We inspect every one once annually. And we're looking to prevent, of course, stormwater pollution, which can be from oil fuel spills left outside at those facilities, ensuring they have proper storage of chemicals, tires, equipment. Maybe there might even be standing water issues that could lead to mosquito problems. And also we look at their sand, grit traps, and floor drains just to ensure they're functioning properly and not going to overflow and cause any further stormwater pollution. Similarly, we do industrial inspections. So we inspect TCEQ stormwater permitted industries to ensure protection of our stormwater system. We're checking each industry to make sure they have the proper stormwater permitting. So do they have an exposure permit, meaning they have equipment such as barrels or other things outside exposed to stormwater, and no exposure facilities where all their operations are indoors and should not have anything outside affecting stormwater. We're also checking their yards to ensure they have no oil or fuel spills or other type of chemical equipment that could be causing stormwater issues. And again, looking for standing water issues to prevent mosquitoes. Similarly, we look at our municipal facilities. We're inspecting every City of Plano owned facility to ensure it's in compliance with our MS4 permit. And mitigating stormwater pollution, we have that sectioned in 3 tiers. Tier 1 is inspected annually. That would be our facilities, like facilities maintenance, where there's a lot of potential outside for storage and vehicles that may contribute to stormwater pollution. So we look at those every year. And then we have Tier 2, which is inspected every other year. That's our facilities that may not have quite as much potential or outside storage. And then the Tier 3s, which are inspected once every 5-year MS4 permit term. A lot of our city parks and things like that are in our Tier 3s, which have a less probability of stormwater pollution. And one of our newest endeavors is our erosion control program and erosion control inspections. So we have a team of 2 inspectors currently that are looking at construction sites to prevent sediment and construction material runoff. Currently, we are looking mainly at single-family residences, and this is, as the environmental quality team, looking at these construction sites once they start going vertical. However, our engineering department is doing the stormwater construction inspections as streets and drainage and things like that are getting put in, and then we're taking over once the vertical building starts occurring. So we're really looking to help mitigate the sediment pollution, which is one of our top polluters in Texas. We also have our fats, oil, and grease program, or FOG. We have a team of 2 inspectors that are inspecting the grease traps and grit traps here in the city of Plano. We have those traps permitted by our department with each facility, and our goal is to inspect every trap at least once a year to ensure that they're functioning properly, and also ensure that the operator is pumping the trap as frequently as necessary. Grease traps need to be pumped every 90 days, and grit traps are to be pumped every 180 days according to our ordinance. And this is to help prevent sewer overflows, which can really add to our bacteria in our streams as well as nutrients, and also help prevent our sewage system from getting blocked up with fats, oil, and grease. We also conduct wet weather samples. So we have 2 sites in each of our 4 major drainage basins, and we try to do all of those sites each year. In each drainage basin, we have one that's more of a residential drainage and one that's more of a commercial drainage. So we're kind of looking at, okay, what's coming off these 2 different types of areas. And if we do find an area that samples high for E. coli or oil and grease, which are our 2 main samples we take, then we will kind of survey that area and attempt to investigate if there's a source that needs to be remediated. We also do a biomonitoring program in our 4 major drainage basins. And I failed to mention that would be, I'm going the wrong way here. We have the Indian Creek, drainage basin, which is in West Plano, then White Rock Creek, then Spring Creek, then Rowlett Creek, which is what we're here for today. So for biomonitoring, we're gathering water quality data, flow data, assessing the habitat, and taking benthic macroinvertebrate samples. And these benthics can be a great indicator of stream health. And so we are doing this during the critical period in August each year. And we are still accumulating data on this and hope to kind of begin assessing that data and kind of look at the trends over the past few years of how our stream's health has looked. And then more directly related to Rowlett Creek, we have our interim bacteria reduction plan. We are currently sampling 26 sites along Rowlett Creek. It is identified as impaired for bacteria or E. coli. So we are sampling quarterly 26 sites. We have gathered data since 2018 and are currently looking more into that data and the trends over the past 4 years. Or the past 3 years, really, and hoping to assess more of where these E. coli issues are coming from and find any trends within these sampling sites. Lastly, we are joining the Clean Rivers program, which operates under the Clean Rivers Act, passed by the legislature of Texas in 1991, with a goal of assessing and improving the state's water resources. The TCEQ contracts with river authorities and other entities, and we are currently partnering with the Trinity River Authority and are going to begin that sampling project this year. Here I have noted the areas we will be sampling. We're kind of trying to look at the beginning of the watershed for each major basin and then kind of look at the end. So kind of where we're starting and then what's coming out of Plano. So we are really excited to begin this program and start gathering this data. A bit of contact information here. If anybody has any questions, I'd be glad to answer them later. I'm sure we need to continue on here.
Very good. This is helpful, really, and to know what the city's doing. And I do want to mention that they've helped us install the equipment, and some of the data that he talked about for Rowlett Creek is probably part of the data that we'll be using in doing the further modeling of the watershed. With that, thank you very much, Keith. And Kristen, did you want to say anything representing TCEQ?
Hi, I didn't really prepare anything, but I can say hello to everyone. I'm Kristen DeBone with the TCEQ. I'm the project manager, and I'm glad there's such a great turnout.
Wonderful. Okay, so with this, we have introduction. If you have any thoughts you want to add to what has been done here and what we talked about, please add them to the chat as you see fit. What I'm going to do right now is, so I'm going to give a little update on what the project is and where are we in this project. I want to talk again about your role as stakeholder in this project as the partnership, which this meeting is representing. I want to talk about the steering committee for this project, and then we'll take nominations. We don't have to take all the nomination now. You can either put your name in the chat if you're interested, or if you want to nominate someone, I will going to put a list of who we need for the steering committee. We'll also take nomination by email in the next week or so, and then we can vote on these nominations in next month's meeting. We can discuss everything that was talked about and answer any of your questions or thoughts on the project. And then I'm going to talk, and this says an hour. It's going to be probably going to take longer than till 3 to get to this, but this last lecture will be shorter, probably half an hour, and then we'll open it up to the public. And if we're good, we'll adjourn maybe a little bit before 4. So I did want to show you the website of this project. So it's aglife.org/LID, and then it says Rowlett Creek Watershed Characterization with dashes between the words. I added, this is an old one, this is last meeting announcement, but if you go to the website right now, you'll see this meeting announced, and actually at the bottom there, I've put the agenda, and at the bottom of this, you can see I have a link to this presentation in case you want it. And Keith, I will going to ask you if you can send me a PDF of your presentation, and I will, if you don't mind sharing it, and I can add it to this website too. But this is where we'll have announcements. So if you check it out every once in a while, you might see updates on this page on any report that will come that's approved by TCEQ. I will post here, and then the meetings will be posted here too. I do want to acknowledge again the funding sources. I mentioned them a little briefly, but this was a 319H grant that the TCEQ have given us from US EPA funds, and we have local matching that was from Texas A&M AgLife, that's me, extension, and then we had matching from Southern Methodist University and the city of Plano for this project. So here it is. This is Rowlett Creek. The part we're talking about starts probably. It has this whole area parts in many cities. Mostly, as you can see, it's within the city of Plano, but it does go in Richardson, in Garland, and parts in Murphy, parts in Saxe. It's on the border of Rowlett, parts of Parker, Allen, and McKinney, and Frisco. All these contribute to the watershed. We are showing here sub-watershed that we've divided. You can see there's the headwaters of Rowlett. There's Cottonwood coming from McKinney through Allen down and connecting with Rowlett. Here we have Spring Creek, which goes and connects with Rowlett in Garland. And then we have these 3 sections, which are the main Rowlett, but we're dividing in a section because these are the location we're actually monitoring. The outlet of each of these sub-watershed are being monitored, so we can use that division to understand where sources of pollution are coming from. The creek does drain into Lake Ray Hubbard, which is one of the main sources of water supply to the city of Dallas. It's owned by the city of Dallas. And so again, the city of Dallas, even though it misses them by very little right here, so they're actually not in the watershed, they do have the biggest benefit from a cleaner stream, as it would reduce pollution to the water source. This is really a unique watershed compared to a lot of the watershed protection plans that are being developed in Texas, as a huge part of this watershed, really a very large percentage, is highly urbanized. And so the sources are going to be a little bit different than other locations. We're going to expect that agriculture has a lower impact. Hogs maybe have, and wildlife has a lower impact, while urban sources with pets and human actions are probably a big source. This is, I'm hypothesizing here. The results will come up once we finish with all the water quality analysis and look at different land uses as it relates to the E. coli concentrations. And this is here shows you again the land use in more details. As you can see, the developed part, which are these 4 sections, constitute around 70% of the watershed, and then the other considerable land uses are grassland, pasture and hay. These are grassed areas that could be parks, that could be open land, but they're still not completely natural, like have lower infiltration due to probably high use in them. So it's really a very highly urbanized watershed, as you can see. The reason why we have this meeting is because the watershed is impaired. Basically, the TCEQ every couple of years, so there's one due this year, produces a report called the Texas Integrated Report of Surface Water Quality. And based on regular testing to different streams and comparing the pollutant concentration, different pollutant concentration to the limits, the allowable limits of these pollutants. If these numbers exceed them in either averages of several tests, or can exceed a certain acceptable average, or one test is very high, then that stream is considered impaired. In May 2020, which was the last published integrated report, they identified 2,681 stream sections that were impaired. There was 2,681 that were assessed. 325 of these were impaired for bacteria, which is what Rowlett Creek is impaired for, and 148 who had a concern they were going to be close to be impaired, and then 231 were listed as concern for nitrate. The Rowlett Creek is a concern for nitrate, and 164 were listed as concern for total phosphorus. Ours is not a concern for total phosphorus, although we are measuring it to make sure that this stays true during the time of the project. So Rowlett Creek was placed originally on that integrated report back in 2004. It's called the 303D list, and it's still listed in 2020, so it has not improved as a result. And that's why we're having this project, in order to look at ways that best management practices can be implemented to improve the water quality in Rowlett Creek. What the city of Plano is doing is already amazing, and hopefully we can build on that and add more options and suggestions, such as green infrastructure. So it was also listed in 2004 as a concern for nitrate. And so that means that nitrate levels are high enough to be a concern that could result in impairment, but not yet. And it's still listed as a concern in the 2020 integrated report. So what is E. coli? What is that bacteria that is causing the river to be called impaired? So E. coli is a naturally found bacteria. It looks like this hairy little swimming alien. It's found in the intestine and the stomach of warm-blooded animals in general. We have a lot of it in our own stomach naturally. Most of the strains are harmless. Some do cause problems, or sometimes also imbalance. A high number of these E. coli in someone's intestine can cause or imbalance can result in sickness, and then it could cause more serious damage. But that's not really what is the concern here, that just the E. coli in the water, while you don't want to be drinking other people's E. coli. It's really used as an indicator bacteria, which is really meaning if we do find E. coli in the water, that means that this water has been polluted with fecal material. And therefore, pathogens that are common in fecal material might be present in the stream too, and these could be seriously harmful, and therefore the stream is considered impaired. That said, we know for a fact that there will be some because of wildlife, because of pets, and also these OSSF, so on-site sewer systems. All those could result in leaking of certain material that will show E. coli. But the question is the amount of E. coli reaching the river high enough that this stream is impaired? In this case, yes. And this whole project and a follow-up project that will develop a watershed protection plan aims at suggesting and developing methods that we will model and show that the implementation of such BMPs will result in an improvement in the water quality of the stream. Nitrate nitrogen, again, we mentioned that the creek is a concern for nitrate nitrogen. Nitrate nitrogen is commonly found in fertilizer. So every time we fertilize our lawn, yard, or if there's the ag land fertilized, there's a chance that nitrate, which is water soluble, leaches with the water, and high concentration of nitrates are found in streams in the area. Also, this is not the only source. There's something called the nitrogen cycle. I'm not going to go in detail about it, but basically ammonia can become nitrate in some form. There could be a cycle that will produce nitrate. The composition of plants results in nitrate. The composition of animals too, and fecal material of animal can produce nitrate. So there's a lot of sources of nitrates. High nitrate in water is dangerous. There's a blue baby syndrome. If nitrate is above, I think, 10 milligrams per liter, it can result in what's known as blue baby syndrome. Of course, a lot of that water is treated before we drink it, but in case there's direct contact with water, it's something to be concerned about. So reducing nitrate is definitely one of the objectives of this project. Also, nitrate, when it comes in high concentration in areas where water accumulates, maybe at receiving lakes like Ray Hubbard, high nitrate volumes can cause algal blooms, which in turn, as the algae dies off, it reduces dissolved oxygen and could result in fish kills in some streams. So what's this portion of the project aiming to do? So this project has three main activities that are resulting from it. And this project, by the way, ends in end of August, and we are now currently in negotiation with TCEQ to hopefully receive a follow-up project so we can complete the watershed protection plan. And so in this project, we're collecting data on water quality. I'm going to go into detail about this a little bit later. There's existing sources. Keith mentioned that they've been collecting data from 2018. TRA has data from previous times that are published on the TCEQ water quality websites, Wikimias. And also, we've selected 5 sites so that we can more easily identify where is the E. coli mostly coming from these 5 sub-watershed right here, because the data that we have right now does not allow us to identify where is it coming from directly. So we're doing some site monitoring to understand better the sources of the E. coli and the nitrogen. And we're ongoing with this. Then we're going to take that data and we're going to do some modeling. We're going to be identifying source of pollution. We're going to use 3 methods of modeling that I'm going to talk about later, basically load duration curve, select, and SWAT to model this watershed so we can understand how pollution happen. This section actually is, I shouldn't have put this, is determine, we're going, I guess we will determine how much reduction we need in order to bring back that stream to be non-impaired. So we'll identify how much load of E. coli and nitrogen we need. But in the next step, we will actually look into modeling best management practices to see what effective best management practices will result in reduction in impairment. And the third thing is what we're doing today. We're having stakeholder meetings. Nothing will go in the watershed protection plan if it's not approved by the stakeholders. So we're going to share information with stakeholders like we're doing today. And I'm going to show you a schedule of the next meeting for this phase of the project. So we can begin the process of developing a watershed protection plan after this. So here's where we are. We've completed the monitoring site selections, and we've completed stakeholder building. We've developed a list. We've emailed you all. We get more stakeholders every time. Hopefully we'll have more next meeting too. We update that stakeholder list regularly. I did miss a couple of people this time that emailed me when they saw the ad, so that's good. At least we advertise also publicly through several outlets so that in case we did miss someone in the email list, they can see it somewhere else. So we have a good stakeholder list that is representative of the various stakeholder groups in the watershed. What we do now, it's ongoing. We're doing water quality monitoring. We collect routine samples at the 5 sites I mentioned earlier, and we also collect storm samples when our equipment's working and storms happen that trigger the equipment to collect samples. Modeling development, we've submitted a quality assurance plan to TCEQ, and we're hoping we get it back. Once that QAPP is approved by TCEQ and EPA, we can start doing the modeling for the watersheds to understand the load duration curve, develop the load duration curve, and model the flows in the watershed. We're going to keep doing stakeholder meetings. We're planned to do 6 meetings before August. This is the second one, so there's going to be 4 from now till August, and I'll show you my suggested times. And then once we finish the modeling, we'll be doing some analysis of the modeling. Currently, we're analyzing the data. We look at the different results from water quality that we're getting from the water quality monitoring and putting them in forms that will be easily integrated in the model once we can begin doing the modeling. Hopefully by the end of by August, we will have a report that shows both the monitoring result as well as the modeling results. So this is hopefully in August we'll have that report. Now, as I mentioned, we are looking to continue this project for another couple of years, and we will focus at this point on to develop the full watershed protection plan to submit to EPA for approval, TCEQ and EPA for approval. During this, we will continue stakeholder meetings, and we will do some additional modeling, mostly as it relates to BMP performance and ability to bring Rowlett Creek out of impairment. And so hopefully this phase 2 will start in September 2022. So here are the tentative dates that I have for the next remaining 4 meetings for this project. Next month we'll have one. Maybe it will be a little bit shorter, but we'll have at least some information to share with you. I'll present to you some of the water quality data that we got, and we'll see if we have our modeling QAPP approved. Maybe I'll share with you the some results of modeling. This to be decided. I'm skipping March as it's spring break time, and maybe a lot of people won't be able to attend. And so we'll do the next meeting on April 27. All these dates are the last Wednesday of the month. So April 27 we'll have the 4th stakeholder meeting, and we'll have one in May 25th. We'll skip June and do one in July, because in July we would have a lot of information about this phase of the project. So this would be the stakeholder meeting where we present and seek feedback on the results of this phase of this project. After this, once we have a project and we know that we're continuing and developing a watershed protection plan, we will have quarterly meetings for phase 2 throughout the life of the project. So if it's 2 years, we'll have 8 meetings to continue the work on this watershed protection plan. So at this point, if you have any questions, any comments, I'm happy to answer or.
Hey, Dr. Drader, this is Dave Cowan. Can you hear me?
I can.
How are you, sir?
I'm doing great. How are you?
I'm good. I saw the map that you showed about 5 or 6 slides previously, but I can't make out, are the 5 sites on there, or could you point to about where the 5 sites
They're not. Actually, I have another map for this. Let me just check it here. There you go. Did they show? It's a star, huh? Guess it's not showing. They're not, but I'm gonna point them out, and that's a good point. Correction for the next one. So the 5 sites are. Can you see my mouse?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so there's one right here. It's on 75, collecting from the headwater. The second one is right here, actually, at the connection of right before the connection of Cottonwood Creek with Rowlett Creek. So this site tells us what's happening in Cottonwood Creek. There's a site right here, right on Spring Creek, right before it hits Rowlett. So that site is telling us what this watershed is doing. Then we have a site right here that will tell us the combination of all these 4, but that will help us knowing what's happening here, here, and here. We will understand what's happening in that middle part. And then we have a site right before it hits Lake Ray Hubbard right here. Oops, it's around right here, and that's is basically the outlet of the watershed.
Okay, thank you. And how many GS or how many flow sites do you have? Or are you collecting flow when you go out?
So there are ISCOs on these 5 sites that actually measure flow. Now, they're not the most reliable instruments, and every once in a while they break. So we get lost data in some location, but mostly we are collecting continuous flow at these 5 sites. The other thing is there is a USGS station somewhere around this area, and where the plan is to use SWOT modeling and calibrate the whole watershed based on that USGS station right here. And if the calibration is successful with a high R-square and other goodness of fit measures, then we actually could use the model, the SWIM model, to determine flow at any of these points too. And so we have a historic 30-year data to calibrate the model based on that USGS station. We have the flow at each of the water quality / flow stations, and we have the SWOT model that will help us with that data.
Excellent. Okay, thank you.
Sure. And we called on you earlier in case you wanted to say anything in the name of the North Texas Municipal Water District and their involvement in helping us doing water quality in this project.
I'm sorry I missed that. I was at a previous meeting, but I'm glad to participate. Glad to be here.
Very good. Thank you. Any other questions or thoughts?
I do as an internship, as part of the internship community. What would be my job in the project? I'm just curious.
I have a meeting with you tomorrow. We'll discuss this into detail, but mainly it's going to be, I have a few interns joining me from UNT Dallas, and then actually I have a couple from El Centro that are going to help us in this coming year. And there's going to be a lot of help in the water quality sampling process. And then once we get that modeling QAPP approved, you guys are going to help me with developing the load duration curves. So that's the part of the plan at this point. For the UNT folks, so that's you, Sean, there'll be other projects you're going to be working on too separately. So
Dr. Jabber, this is Ramesh Chantala.
Oh, hey, Ramesh, how are you?
I'm good. My understanding is that there's a ton of erosion going on in Rowlett Creek. Are you going to be looking at that at all?
So at this point in this phase, we're actually we have total suspended solid data being collected for the project, and at this point of phase, we're just quantifying what are we finding in the water in different locations, and identifying, is the TSS coming from Spring Creek higher than the TSS from Cottonwood, or the headwater? Where are these sources? Where is the E. coli highest coming from, concentration and load in general? And once we look at this and produce that report, which would be in August, the next phase, which is the Watershed Protection Plan, we're going to look into best management practice to look at it. And so erosion, stream bank erosion, and upland erosion are sources of TSS, and also E. coli could be transporting into lakes in those total suspended solids. So we will look into this, and we could suggest if we look and there are significant portion of the stream banks that are eroding, clearly bank stabilization would be one of the BMPs that we would recommend, and probably check on its results. But we will also look into green stormwater infrastructure as a way to capture a lot of the pollutants, and other typical BMPs that would be helpful.
Excellent. Thank you.
Okay, well, with this, let's go to the second portion of this meeting and discuss, and this partially I've talked about this in the last meeting, but since it's been a while, it's a good reminder. And then at the end of this, we'll talk about the steering committee, which is really a big part, an important part of today's meeting. And so a stakeholder in general, and just so that you know, it's someone who is involved in a project and does make decisions and implements them, actually. So people who live there, people who work there, people who own property there, organizations, industry location, all these count as stakeholders. Anything that happen in the area, they'll be affected by those decisions. And the reason they're stakeholders, that these watershed protection plans, they're actually stakeholder driven. So we actually, we will do some scientific analysis and present it. And we really look forward to feedback from the stakeholders with regard to how to direct and what to put into that watershed protection plan. I was just answering Ramesh that said that if we find this, we will recommend this. But in reality, if I find this, I will come and present that, yes, there is stream erosion here. These are ways to reduce erosion. And then I will seek feedback so that you guys would tell me, like we prefer this method over this method. We don't think anyone will want to put this BMP, and we really don't want to see it in our watershed protection plan, will have to work together to come up with an acceptable plan to reduce pollution in the watershed as a result of this. So you coming to these meetings, voting, telling me what you think about it is very important. And there hopefully will be a phase 3, which is implementation of the BMPs. Once we have a watershed protection plan in place that is approved, there will be some funds to encourage some implementation of the BMPs. Hopefully, there will be volunteer implementation too. So stakeholders are the ones that will be involved in this implementation. So you don't have to be also, you could be just very interested in Rowlett Creek. You like it, you want it to be good. You plan to come and visit it. Even if you live in Fort Worth, you're welcome to be involved. Anyone who feels that they have a stake in the stream, regardless of where they live, and can be stakeholders in this project. And so here are examples: citizen groups, religious and community organization, businesses and industries, landowners, residents in general, local government staff and officials, academia. In this case, we were looking what academia. College is one of the academia that are present in this watershed, non-governmental organization, environmental conservation groups, farmer groups, all those could be stakeholders in the project. And once you come, you might be sent here by your entity if you're a local government representative, but in the meeting you're really a stakeholder in yourself, and it's between you and your bosses. But to the meeting, you can express your own thoughts as a stakeholder in the project. So again, stakeholders are a key part of developing an effective watershed protection plan. We want to develop a plan that's already approved and accepted by stakeholders. We do not want to come up with solutions and put them in a document, say, this is how you fix it, without actually sharing the information and developing the information with the stakeholders. So when we have a watershed protection plan that you guys participated in developing, it's more likely to be implemented. We need to try as much as we can to have a well-distributed representation of the groups I had in the previous slide. And local knowledge is important. I live right outside. I live and I work right outside Rowlett Creek, so I do have some local knowledge, but definitely people from the city of Plano, residents in the area, it might have insight that I might not have, because I'm not there all the time, and I haven't lived there all my life. So this is very important. Stakeholder providing local knowledge is very important to the process. And so again, the goal of having these stakeholder meetings is to develop a plan that will drive implementation. Basically, if it's developed and locally driven by the stakeholders, then it will result in improvement in water quality in the creek. And so these are our objectives here. Okay, so the structure, there's two main groups. There's the Watershed Protection Partnership, that we're calling the partnership here, and that's you guys. Right, today's meeting is the second meeting of the Rowlett Creek Watershed Protection Partnership, and it's the overall stakeholder group. We'll be meeting, as I said, 4 more times before August, and then quarterly after that, hopefully, when we continue the project. And you guys vote on big decisions. But there will also be a smaller body called the Steering Committee, and we're going to call for nominations today and form a list of the Steering Committee, and then bring it to the next meeting and vote on it. And hope the Steering Committee well, there's rules here. We mentioned them last time. Nothing. You can say whatever you want. You can ask whatever you want, and just be respectful to other people. That's basically what it is. The steering committee, it's going to be a core group of stakeholders, and they're going to vote on every part of the decision process. The key watershed decisions, review potential water quality improvement BMPs for applicability in the watershed, and these recommendations may be integrated eventually in the watershed protection plan if it's voted on by the partnership. How can you get involved beyond coming to the stakeholder meeting? You're already going the number one. If you're interested in becoming part of the steering committee, please make sure that you nominate yourself, or if you want someone else to be a member of the steering committee, also nominate them. We will have the partnership has 4 meetings. We will have a meeting, at least one meeting before the partnership meeting to discuss stuff. So it's just really a small commitment, not a huge commitment to be part of the steering committee. Maybe instead of attending 4 meetings a month, you will attend 8 in total, unless there's something that is urgent, and we will call for a fast meeting and do additional meeting. But the plan for now is to have one meeting in addition to the general partnership meeting. And same thing with the next phase 2 of the project. If we're having quarterly meeting, we probably will have quarterly steering committee meetings. I think at this point, again, and unless we find a need to meet more for that. So I'm lying right here. I say I was going to send a survey to solicit participation. I'm doing it orally, really. I'm soliciting participation right now. I'm going to probably send an email to the email list this week, maybe by tomorrow, also soliciting steering committee participation. And then once we have a list, we'll come in the meeting in February and vote. The partnership will vote on accepting the steering committee. There's no limit on the total number. We'll have to discuss it. I'm going to show you in the next slide who should be on the steering committee. So we need contributing partners. This is cities. So when I wrote this proposal, most of the cities in the watershed, or where parts of the watershed are, sent letters of recommendation for this proposal, and as a result, it got funded. And so I know we have a few city representatives right here. So I would like the city representative, if able, to nominate one person from each city and send me their names, so that they are members of this steering committee. I put 4 here, but any, I think we got 4 or 5 letters. We've already talked with the city of Plano, having Keith as a representative, but we look forward for the other cities to be involved. We would like representative of the counties. So, and by the way, the city of Dallas too wrote a letter of recommendation too, and we'd really like the city of Dallas to be part of it, given that they have ownership of Lake Ray Hubbard. So there's an interest there. So the representative of Collin County and Dallas County would be great to have on the steering committee. We have one water authority in that watershed, and it's the North Texas Municipal Water District. And I've talked to Dave, and he's going to find me a representative, hopefully. I haven't had contact with Collin College. If any of you have a right contact, it would be great to hear, and I can communicate with them to see if they can send a representative, because they would be a good site for implementation on the long term. We need at least, and I put 4 here, but if there's more interested, we can consider having more private owners, or even just residents. A good mix of someone who owns a farm. I've contacted 2 people that own farms here just in Plano. Hopefully we'll get at least one of them to be a rep, but other residents or private owners will be welcome to be part of this committee. Local agencies, if there's a soil and water conservation district rep, I was told by my 2 agents who are half county, actually half AgriLife Extension. I'm going to put both of them on the steering committee because we have one horticulture specialist and he'll help us a lot with green infrastructure, and then we have an ag specialist that will help us a lot with contact with the ag community in the watershed. So they'll both be on that committee. We'll have a soil and water conservation district rep that is actually officed close to them. And I did see that parks and wildlife is Rep Adam. You're here, right? If you are interested, yes. Adam, it would be great if you're interested to be part of this steering committee and I'm saying local in the broad sense. So since you're a state agency, you're welcome to be on the steering committee. And then I'm still looking for industry businesses. I know there's big companies in this watershed. I know there's, I think, Raytheon campus. I'm not sure about TI if they have a. I think they have a campus on Renner Road that is in that watershed. It's worth looking into. But if you guys have any contact or anyone present here is a industry or business representative and is interested in being in the steering committee, I look forward to receiving nominations from you. We can start now. If you're interested, put it in the chat. I will have that chat saved and I can see these names. And if you want to think about it, maybe from now until the end of next week, by next Friday, not this Friday, not in a couple of days, but in a week, I will compile all the nominations that I received. Of course, self-nominations are encouraged. You don't have to wait for someone else to nominate you. And I'll compile a steering committee list, and then I'll bring it to me, bring it with me to the next meeting, if that works for you.
Hey, Fuad, I was also thinking as you're talking regarding industry businesses, reaching out or having any of the cities reach out to their Chamber of Commerce, because they're going to have industries and businesses that work with their Chamber of Commerce.
That would be a great, that's a great suggestion. Yes, if you guys have a contact with your Chamber of Commerce, if you let them know about this project and how important it is and how not a huge commitment it is, we would love to have a representative of these of some of the industries and businesses, because they're going to be a good driver for implementation on the long run. Any other thoughts or comments? If you think I missed anything here.
Well, do you have an email or something just already prepared that you may have sent out to other entities that we can just forward along to these industrial facilities?
I will make one.
Okay, perfect.
I will make one and send it to you. Very good. I'll send it actually to the whole attendees of this meeting. Hopefully that they'll take it from there. Great suggestion. Okay. Well, here you are, 3:05, so I was only 5 minutes late. So what I want to do now, before just as part of presenting, is just tell you a little bit about how we're going to be working with this data. It's just a short presentation. I think I have 6 or more slides, and then we'll just open it up for comments, thoughts, and discussions, and then we'll adjourn. So with that, let me start and tell you what's the process. I thought I had my sites here, but I don't. They are. I do have a map where they're in here. But as I mentioned, we have this watershed. We have sites at the outlet of each of these sub watersheds right here. and not this one, because we actually had to go back in the lower one where the level of the watershed is not impacting the flow rate due to backflow, so it's a little bit up, but all the others are at the outlets. And these samplers, they're called ISCO samplers. You can use them to just go and press a couple of buttons and get a sample from the water, and they measure flow constantly every 5 minutes, and so we can tell what the flow rate is at that point. And then we usually take these samples to the North Texas Municipal Water District Water Quality Lab, and we measure for several pollutants. They're listed here: E. coli, total suspended solids, nitrate, nitrite, nitrogen, total chill-down nitrogen, ammonia nitrogen, and total phosphorus. The reason why there's 3 types of nitrogen is because we use these to calculate the total nitrogen from these, and nitrate specifically is the reason they're in different colors is because their Rowlett is impaired for E. coli, and it's a concern for nitrate, nitrite. But we get these samples, they give us concentrations, and then we take these flows that we measured at the same time as the sample was collected, and then we calculate what's called the loading. The loading basically is the total amount of pollutant going into that exists in that water when the sample was collected. And basically it's the parameter concentration that we got from the lab results, and we multiply it by the flow, and we will have a loading. So for example, if the nitrate is 10 milligrams per liter, and we have the flow that can be converted to liters per minute, and so by multiplying this, we will have a loading, which is an amount, a total amount, because in a period of time. So that would be your loading for these. And loading is the way you can measure what are the current condition and what the condition needs to be. And so that's in order to analyze these loadings, we need to analyze that data. And so the data we collect, these measurements, they'll give us baseline knowledge, what's happening right now in the different sub-watershed of the of Rowlett Creek, and then do they change over time? So we take routine samples once every quarter, and then now we're going to do even more in the next 5 months. We're going to try to have 1 or 2 samples a month. We take samples during storms, and that's going to tell us if there are trends. Are the winter is the winter data different than the summer data? What does that mean in general? How is that related to what's happening in the watershed? Is there any area of concern other than the other? Is that part of the watershed producing more nitrate while this other one producing more E. coli? Is there a particular tributary that needs more focus? All that is going to show with this water quality data and these loadings that we have. It could be something else. Is there a, I don't know, wastewater treatment plant that is changing the data? So by looking at the data, we might be able to understand things that we haven't thought about too in general. The data will be presented in general and then discussed, and some of the thoughts that this is where local knowledge can come. I might be not able to understand why there's something happening here, and someone in the stakeholder group can tell me, well, this area has this type of use that is common, and that makes sense that this is happening here, and so that could provide us with a lot of help and discussions. And then eventually, when we're looking at ways to reduce pollution in the stream, we will be able to come up with a plan that will target specifically these areas if this is thought as the main source of the pollution. We're going to measure load duration curves, and this is an example of it, but I'm going to go into detail what are load duration curves in the next slide, I think. And ultimately, with all that data, we hope to sit together with the steering committee and eventually with the total stakeholder group and use that information to develop a watershed protection plan that is approved and voted by all the stakeholders. So what is a load duration curve? Basically, a load duration curve is we mentioned what loadings are. They're basically the flow rate multiplied by the concentration of the pollutant. And so the flow rate can be divided into various sections. You have, in this example, they don't have flow during dry conditions, but in streams like in Rowlett Creek, we always have some flow. We have low flow that is routine coming from the whole watershed. It's a big watershed, so there's always flow. And so we have several measurements that will give us an average concentration of E. coli for the low flows. Then whenever we took a measurement and the flow is higher because a storm happened a couple of days ago or a small storm happened that day, and we have concentration of E. coli during those events, then we multiply this concentration and we can get the loading for this range. Similarly, for very high flows and for very moist condition. And so then this is the flows, and it shows a percentage of exceedance, meaning 60% of exceedance. It means that the flow is high is higher than the 60% of the time. And then those, mid-range conditions is when it's 50% of the time higher than this. Moist range is from 40 to 10%. High flows are only 10% of the time, and the highest flow ever recorded usually will have 0%. And then when you multiply this with the concentration you got, you will have a plot of E. coli load here, if you can see it, versus load exceeded. And so that's that blue line right here that is plotted. And then you can plot on it the flow multiplied by the maximum allowable load, which is the limit of impairment, basically. And so what this will show you is once we have that blue line developed, we can see how much higher it is from that impairment line. And we want to bring down that blue line down to that red line to actually remove impairment, especially in the lower range of flows, because these are the most everyday flows. These high flows happen 10% of the time over a long period. So we'll try to reduce those in general, but really we want to look at bringing down that blue line to the red line or below to reduce impairment as a result. So this is basically what we're doing is getting these flows, calculating the averages for different flow conditions of concentration, developing a flow duration curve. Interns have asked what they're doing. You're going to be working on graphs like this, and we'll share the data with you so we can understand what's happening. And that's going to help a lot in understanding, as I mentioned, one of the objective of this proposal is to understand how much we need to reduce the loading in order to bring the stream out of impairment. The second model that we're going to be using is a model called SELECT, and it stands for Spatially Explicit Load Enrichment Calculation Tool. And we're going to be starting to work on this once we have permission, once our modeling QAPP is approved. And basically, we're going to bring spatial data from different sources, land use data, population data, and associate these with potential fecal production rates. So, for example, if we have an average, we can get the average number of households, and then we can get the average number of dogs or cats in the household in this region. We plot these in SELECT, and then SELECT will give us what's the potential fecal production rate from that watershed. Again, it assumes it takes these numbers of averages and applies them to all these areas. So it can give an overestimation of sources, but it can be looked at as a worst case scenario, which is going to be very helpful in our analysis. This is here an example from the Buck Creek watershed where they used select. They got numbers of estimated feral hogs in these different sections, and they got from literature a number, what amount of E. coli is produced by feral hogs in the different per day, and then they multiplied that number by the flow and the number of feral hogs estimated in each of these subwatershed, and so they had an estimate of the total E. coli that can be daily entered in the creek in that watershed. And then you can realize it ranks them in number of severity, and you can see that this mid sub-watershed turned out to be the highest potential producer of E. coli from feral hogs in this. Of course, ours was going to be lower in feral hogs, but there's going to be other sources, as I mentioned. Select allows you to do pet result of E. coli coming from pets, but also from wildlife. You know, I suspect that squirrels could be a higher culprit than feral hogs in that watershed, but it remains to be seen as we do that analysis. And then when you get that, then you can start discussing that these are the watershed that we will aim at targeting further with best management practices, because you're going to get the most bang for your buck by applying those right here. Finally, I just want to mention SWOT model. We're in this project, we're not really going to do at this point loading using SWOT. What we aim to do, and that's all remain with the approval of the QAPP, is we want to use the SWOT model, because as I mentioned in our creek, let me look at this map here. Oh, here you are. This is the map that had some of the, but then I covered it with another thing. It had the sites 1, 2, 3. And there's a couple of sites here hidden here and there. See right here. I knew I put a map that had the stations on, but basically, in this, as based on Dave's earlier question, we have one USGS station here, and we've been collecting data since 2020 from these 5 sites right here. So we have some flow data, but that's not going to be enough flow data to do a good analysis. And so as a result, by calibrating the SWOT model to match that USGS station based on actual conditions in the watershed, we will be able to extrapolate flow rates in different locations too, that we can improve by comparing these numbers on these specific dates with the flow data from the ISCOs. And so SWOT is going to be used, the SWOT model, which is the Soil and Water Assessment Tool, is going to be used to delineate some parts of the watershed and then eventually run flows to determine flow rates in different locations that could be used in load calculations. And SWOT is a hydrologic model. It's actually the most widely used hydrologic model in the world, according to a paper that was published in Nature a few years ago. And then it takes the elevation map, it takes the land use map, it takes the soil map, and then it mixes those together, creates hydrologic units, and then you put a storm event in there, and it uses physical and empirical equations to calculate how much of that water infiltrates, how much of that water runs off, and it does it in time steps, so you can figure out the flow at any time in during your the period of time you're running. And then as a result, you can identify flow rates in the stream at different times during your run. And then knowing water quality at that time, then you can produce loadings in times where you didn't have actual flow measured as a result. And at this point, we can start take more questions. If you have any points you want to make, discussions with related to this, this is the time. Last thing I'm going to do is I'm going to put this here. By the way, just so that you know, I'm going to put it back on that website. I've put already the this presentation on the website. So if you go to that to this website, you'll be able to download that presentation in PDF format. And at the end of this presentation is, in case you didn't, you can see this is my email or one of my emails that you can use. And of course, I have to encourage you to like my AgriLife ecological engineering Facebook page, but you don't have to. But if you email me with your nominations or any other questions that you have at this point, and I will open it up for discussion.
So this is Nathan Davison.
Yes.
Yeah, I'm from Dallas County. I represented them on the board for the Jopool Lake, and the plan is for me to do that again for Rowlett Creek. Should I get someone else to send you an email, or can I nominate myself?
You can totally nominate yourself.
Okay.
You actually just and since you're a Dallas County representative and you have a space reserved for you, you won. No, we'll vote on the steering committee, but yes.
Okay, thank you.
I see a hand. Yes.
Dr. Jaber, this is George Bach. I have my hand raised. This has actually been really great to just learn about the work you've been doing. It's pretty amazing, actually. So I have a group of friends that I paddle Rowlett Creek with regularly at all kinds of flows. And at higher flows, we sometimes end up coming out of our boats and swimming. So water quality no one's gotten sick yet. It'll be a couple decades before we know what kind of cancers we get. But so this has been super interesting. But you mentioned there's 5 other sites besides the USGS gauge that you are collecting data at. I'm wondering if that data is available publicly yet, or if you're planning on making it public at some point.
Yes, so that data is going to be in the report for the characterization, which is due in August, but it will be shared with this group as we start, where we're ongoing with the data collection. It's actually available, but I don't know, through maybe actually Kristen can correct me if I'm saying something wrong here, but there's a TCEQ website that has that data that's available for the public. It's a GIS website. So whatever we got up to this point, I think is available publicly on the SWCAMIS website, which I can email to. But as we're gonna get, we will have next, probably in next meeting, I'm going to present the data, which I have 8 or 9 sampling events up to this point in these 5 sites that I'll probably, and I'm hoping to have a few more before February, now that we have all these great interns joining. Probably next meeting, which is the end of February, we will talk about what type of data we've seen in the stream to this point, and then definitely be published into the final characterization reports due in August.
Great, thank you. I'll be looking forward to hearing more about it.
Okay. Any other thoughts or comments? See if there's anything in the chat here. There you go. Heather just put a link to our data in the chat if you guys are interested. Some of you might not have access to this after we end the meeting, so copy it and use it now. And David also posted it. Very nice. Okay, well, it looks like I'm going to give you back 33 minutes of your life, unless you have one last comment before that. Well, thank you all for. Oh, here you go. You have someone.
Hey, Doctor.
Yes.
This is Tim Rogers with the City of Murphy,
Yes.
Public Service Director. I would like to nominate one of my staff members, Wade Williams, as representative on the selection committee. He's
Very
my public
good.
works superintendent.
That's great. If you could send me his email, that would be great.
Okay, will do.
Wonderful. Thank you. Very good. Okay. Well, thank you all for coming. This was great. I talked most of the time, so that's why. No, but this is great. Good feedback, good ideas, good thoughts. Things I've noted. I need to. I'm gonna just repeat. If you guys are in a city and you have contact with the Chamber of Commerce, it would be great if you could contact them and let them know, especially if they're the business is located in Rowlett Creek Watershed, to see if they can nominate someone on the steering committee. That would be great. And I'm going to draft an email to send you so that you can specifically invite people, or maybe just send that email to the Chamber of Commerce. That would be helpful. And I think that's my homework for this couple of days. And with that, I am going to end the meeting. Thank you again all for coming, and hopefully we'll see you in the last week of February, last Wednesday of February. Take care.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for this opportunity.
Absolutely.